A very good morning to you and welcome to the show. This is Newday, Saturday edition. My name is Abna Tebi. Once again, welcome. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we are streaming live online around the world at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page at TV3 Ghana. We will be running from now till 9:50, where we'll bring conversations here to a close. We will encourage you to send through your comments, your contributions, remarks, whatever it is you have to share in respect of the topics that we'll be discussing this morning. And please send them to our WhatsApp number 050-0607-070, and we will read them to the rest of the world. Indeed, it has been a very eventful week, and not only the week, but particularly the Wednesday, 6th of June. And we are particularly talking about events of that day where the much publicized, the much anticipated, the much advertised premiering of ANAS's or Tiger IPI's latest expose on Ghana football was actually premiered. Finally, it was premiered, and what I don't even know how to describe it. It sent shockwaves all around, globally and locally. We'll be looking at events of that day, and we'll look specifically at the video documentary that was premiered on that day. We'll be looking at matters arising from that. Indeed, the documentary revealed that what has been described as an extensive nature at of the seeming rot involving top GFA officials, top National Sports Authority officials, match commissioners, football administrators and referees, among many others. It also revealed the apparent grand scheme of the GFA boss to take over Ghana, which said situation exactly exposes and confirms the weaknesses in our politics. Now, in the wake of the showing of the documentary, a number of major developments have occurred. I'll quickly go through them. Now, we have, for sure, there's an announcement that FIFA has banned Kwesi Nyantakyi from all football activities for 90 days. Now, a ban which could be extended for an additional period not exceeding 45 days. Also, Kwesi Nyantakyi has resigned as president of the GFA. Kwesi Nyantakyi has rendered an unreserved apology to the President and Vice President of Ghana, ministers and deputy ministers of state for his, quote, indiscretion in associating them with the private conversations, unquote, captured in ANAS's expose. Also, government has decided to dissolve the GFA. As it is a decision. It is yet to be put into execution or implementation. We also know that ANAS has sued Kennedy Japan in a defamation action for 25 million Ghana cedis in damages. On the show this morning, we shall be looking at the expose on Ghana football and the fallouts that have come up so far. Also, we'll be looking at the mass sacking of top management personnel or officials of some 4 state institutions, and with this we're looking at BOST, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, also the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, and the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. Now, it would appear that from the beginning of this year, perhaps with the exception of the CEO of Korle Bu Teaching Hospital, the remaining sacked CEOs have either by themselves or their institutions in general been embroiled in one controversy or the other. Question lingering on many people's minds is whether or not these controversies perhaps were the basis for their removal. We don't know for sure, but we will be looking at this situation as it played out on Wednesday alongside the premiering of the much anticipated number 12, when greed and misconduct become the norm. So this morning we'll be looking at these very 2 important topics, and it promises to be an exciting discussion. We have quite some seasoned guests on the show to do some serious analysis of these topics. We'll take a break. When we come back, I'll introduce to you the panel for today's conversations. You're still watching Newday Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Newday Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're streaming online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. I'll quickly introduce the panelists for today's conversation. From my extreme left, we have Michael Oteje. He's head of sports here at Media General. Next is Dr. Nana Eyu Efriye. He is the Honorable MP for Ifijase Asokori. We also have Jerome Ochery. He is a former editor of Kotoko Express. And last but not least, we have Yao Opon. He is a private legal practitioner. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. So today we have two very important topics we're looking at. We'll start off with the aftermath of the showing of number 12, when greed and misconduct become the norm. That's the latest expose coming out of Tiger IPI. And indeed, it has caused major stir, lots of shockwaves going around, and we will be looking at exactly, what has gone wrong with Ghana football, what is happening, what can be done to turn things around, indeed, if there's that possibility to turn things around, and what would that involve, what would take for that reformation or transformation to come about. Before we launch into the conversation, we will take some snippets of the expose for the benefits of, people who haven't really seen the entire expose, and then we will set our conversations within the right perspective. Let's take a look. We'll be right back.
NAS's investigation went beyond regional football and targeted a major international referee, Rangi Marwa of Kenya, who was due to be running the line as an assistant referee at the World Cup in Russia. He was approached by an undercover journalist posing as a Ghanaian football official during the African Nations Championship. Marwa, sitting in a hotel room, took $600 in cash.
I know that no, this is, thank you for the gift, but this is not the thing. What is important is that friendship, getting to know each other. Okay.
FIFA says Marwa has resigned from the World Cup refereeing team. He told the BBC he denied any wrongdoing.
Well, so that was the bit on the BBC's episode of the expose, not necessarily looking at the full number 12. We will be playing snippets of that in the course of the program, but we'll launch straight into our conversations looking specifically at what was premiered here in Ghana at the conference center on the 6th of June, which was number 12, when greed and misconduct become the norm. So, gentlemen, finally, 6th of June came, and the grand viewing, or the much anticipated, much advertised, publicized showing of that expose, it actually happened. I'll start with you, Michael. We were here 2 weeks ago or so. Yeah. You indicated that you had seen, you had the benefit of viewing some portions or excerpts of it. So you had the benefit of watching.
I had not watched at the time.
Okay, you hadn't. Great. So did it live to expectations, or it went beyond what you expected?
I think the expectations would have meant, I had a fair idea of what was coming. I remember here about how this would touch members of the executive council, of referees, administrators in the system and all that. So in that regard, it met expectation. In the regard of just the sheer quantum of what we saw, it was beyond anything I expected to see. I think one of the things that Anas does so well is that in the journalistic world, normally you have investigative pieces that are mostly newspapers. Investigative journalism traditionally have thrived in the newspaper space, but Anas seemed to have added he's added a strong element of video, and as you know, visuals have a way of conveying messages and doing things in a much better way than written words. But also because of the way it all was built up, picking the words of opponents and turning them into promos, into marketing opportunities. I've always thought of the viewing at the conference center almost like a public shaming, with people eager. I went to the conference at about 1 o'clock on the day, and there were queues there. The 5 o'clock viewing was worse. over a 2-day period, 4 viewings a day, about 12,000 people went through it. So he took almost a showbiz element to it, and it made it so powerful. But the viewing itself, for anybody, you know, I said here 2 weeks ago that sports journalists had spoken in the past consistently about a lot of the issues in this, about issues of referee bribery, about allegations of officials doing underhand deals when it came to sponsorship and the rest. But what that video exposed was beyond anything that I thought I would see. It was shocking, it was shameful, but I hope it's something that triggers hopefully a lot of change at the highest level of football administration.
Very, very well. We have an excerpt we would want to show at this point so that we can come back to the panelists. So let's take that and then we'll return to the panelists.
You can start with something small, your own discussion. Then, when you get the contracts, big contracts, we can go back and give them more money. Then we take over the whole country.
It's good for him to resign, but for my idea, they must to get him arrested. So I think it's good for him to resign, but all the same, he has been waited for long.
Are you happy?
Somehow.
Be thief man, that might be thief. Me, I know him, he's a thief. Well, I mean here a name called Kwesi Nyantakyi in football before, so he's a thief.
Kwesi Nyantakyi do ma achire Ghana for pa. Wa chire Jansa o. Me be footballer o. Ma boss as we say no bribe na dey ama man kumanim. Nti ade we amahuin. Ama ise me hu say Ghana for blaster for gume berebe na bribe for nko a.
Ise ni dey na Nyantakyi ni dey ise no. Jai na wo se o jai. And then yes, we jai no fan who are free. You won't penny for mine. Say, yes, I mean, me do or mine sika. Me cobo mine bossy and a man to ya, quite a dimember fasono. Sa, we do or mine sika, and Tidian penny for the bit me the iron. Almost on fine and also my move on young toy.
He should be arrested. And even all their bank account, all should be confiscated, all of them. They should investigate them properly. They should let them go.
Oh, what to know because we are saying the Ghana Football Association is bad. When you are control Kolana Moasi and oh yes something wrong. To arrest him, I was on Cornucola to who can video na Eden. You should do a 2 hour uncle.
Well, so those were some excerpts and reactions from members of the public there for you. I'll go straight to you, Mr. Pong. You've seen those two, you know, if you like, trailers of the main expose, and these were some of the things that went round, you know, creating the hype and all of that, the interest in it. But then you saw also the reaction. Quite a number of people livid, actually vilifying Mr. Kwesi Nyantakyi. What do you make of that?
Well, good morning. I think that these things have been boiling up for some time now in people, because for nothing at all, Mr. Nyantakyi has been around for a very long time, reasonably long time, and people think that well he has done his bit. I mean, maybe facilitating, if that is the word, that our success at the World Cup, qualifying and then going to the World Cup, I think 3 times, but they think that his time was up and so he should have left. And when it gets to that point, gradually the good things we've done get eroded, and therefore maybe he should have left earlier than this time. But listening to the reaction, you can see that a lot of other things are coming up. I mean, matters that have nothing to do
It looks like people are blaming everything on him
yes,
now. I mean, people's ambitions not being realized.
Taking government money or state money and all that. But, I mean, it's a free society. I think we are all entitled to. But then as we pursue this matter, I think we should also continue to realize or accept the fact that everybody still, whether he has been convicted or not, accused or not, still got their rights intact. And therefore, we have to be careful with what we say. But going into the project itself, for me, I have a favorite quote from the Constitution, Article 41. Forgive me, I have to go there a bit. That the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms is inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations, and accordingly shall be the duty of every citizen, and I go to F, to protect and preserve public property and expose and combat misuse and waste of public funds and property. I mean, this is specifically in reference to public funds and property, but I think it's a provision that may be of universal application. And therefore, when any person sets out to expose corruption in all forms, even among private members, I think the person needs our encouragement. But then at the same time, and I must add quickly, the Constitution recognizes the possibility of abuse.
Right.
And so we have various provisions also in it that whilst we are at it, and the interesting word used is combat. So you can imagine soldiers on the battlefield.
You mean business? Doing
serious business in combating, if you like, infringement of our territorial integrity and jurisdiction. That is how we have to picture it. And in doing so, there is the possibility of we becoming overzealous and infringing on the rights of others. So Article 18 has also specifically provided that in so doing, we must also remember that the rights of the private person or the individual in relation to his communication and privacy must also be respected. So it becomes difficult when you take one side and appear not to be concerned about the other side. What it means is, yes, these things may be disclosed, that private conversation will be disclosed in accordance with law. And if you remember, in recent times, the Supreme Court has had 2 occasions to explain the parameters of this particular provision. It is the provision we have put in our Constitution, and it's enshrined that, yes, there could be 2 competing interests. One, the public right to know how public officers and persons who are managing various affairs of the public conduct themselves, as also against the right of the individual that his communication in privacy will have some reasonable protection from disclosure. So when you put these 2 together, especially if you take the Abner Pokia and ADB case, the court said that you cannot disclose this without taking it through a judicial process. So when you come to me in a private conversation, I must have that assurance that you are not going to disclose it. I mean, this lady's case was very simple. She called someone who it turned out to be a journalist and had some conversation with him concerning how ADB was being managed. In her view, some misconduct and so on going on. Unknown to her, the conversation was being recorded. Then the person turned around to bring it to the authorities of ADB. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. You didn't obviously inform the person that was going to record this conversation and give it to the authorities. And in a similar vein, the issue of this Raphael Kubaji and Assembly of God and others, a case was pending, you get the opportunity to talk to one of the parties, say, well, I don't even think the church has a good case. And then you bring it to court to tender in evidence. The court said, no, you cannot do that. Because if we were to encourage that, we are really going to infringe on people's right to free speech. You understand? So that is the concern. At the same time, if you take Justice Derry's case, yes, the Supreme Court said disclosure of petition to the president for removal of a judge is unconstitutional. But the public also have the right to know how public officers conduct themselves. So it is in this regard that I think we have to look at matters like this.
Because even with the Article 18 you refer to, in that 18.2, you do have the case or circumstances where perhaps in the interest of public safety or the economic well-being of the country, the private individual's, interest may be overridden.
That is so, but that's why I said that in the Abena Pokria case, the court says it should be through judicial process. That's why I have a view that whilst we must all encourage private persons to engage in the work that Tiger Eye does, I think that when the information is obtained or procured by whatever means, it must be given to the appropriate state agency.
For determination before it is put out in the public?
For me, it shouldn't even be put out in the public. Because one...
But even if you put it, you subject it to the judicial process and the judicial process deems it okay to put out to the public.
Well, if the court gives you an
go ahead,
or directs you or grants your request to publish it, that is fine. But I wonder whether the court will even do that whilst the case is pending, for example. Because the evidence can even get tainted in the course of publicizing it or publishing it. And you know that the society we are in, one principle of law we don't want to hear is that a person is innocent until proven guilty. The moment in 3 days, once the allegation is out, even when the court acquits and discharges you, nobody will accept it. The first thing, I'm sure they went to see the court or the judge. And so that is where I have a worry.
Right.
That I think that to support things like this, the other perspectives should have to be looked at. Because we have look at the situation of Tagore, the Tagore case. After all that we said, the Court of Appeal set aside the entire judgment that you cannot criminalize free speech. But today people mention Tagore's name as if he is still a convict.
Right. So it's all about perception. That's why.
And that is why. And the police themselves, there have been instances where they have even gone to arrest people, and upon further investigation, they have released them.
Right.
There are some they've taken to court. The court has acquitted and discharged them. There are some that the court has convicted, and an appellate court has acquitted and discharged them, like the Tagore one. So I think that if we don't look at this other aspect, we'll
be delving deeper into analysis methods, because really it's a debate on its own. We'll come back to that. But quickly, let me move to Jerome here. You have seen the entire, and the same question I put to Michael, did it meet your expectation or it blew your mind beyond expectations?
Well, I had not heard the sort of things that my colleague Michael heard. I had not even had the chance of seeing snippets of it. I only relied on what was being said on radio, a lot of the things that people claim they have heard, and that it was going to uproot us from our seats. Getting into the hall, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be...
You hadn't seen the trailer that was going around with Refi Doku stashing all those things?
That came some few hours to the first showing. And that one surprised me. It didn't surprise me because I didn't know or I didn't believe that these things happen. The manner in which he was putting the money in his pocket.
What about that?
You see, it goes to tell you that it is a practice that perhaps they've been engaged in. But more to the point, during the showing, a lot of the things surprised me. And I'll start with the referees. I know that certain things go on, but the problem for us, for a long time, has been getting the hardcore evidence to say that indeed referees do take bribes.
And indeed, that was what I hear. That was the first scene or the first shot of the documentary was a press conference where Mr. Nyantichi was actually saying that bring hardcore evidence. So now this is it.
So when the referees were coming, and these are referees that some of us have known over time, In fact, we've been close to them. We've watched matches that they were involved. There were controversies over some of the matches. We told them that, come on, I mean, this is not the kind of performance we expect from a FIFA referee. And there were instances where the FA's referees review committee, disciplinary committee, more or less set these referees free after we told them that there's something wrong with the performance of these referees. And I'll give you an example. Referee Samuel Suka, Kotoko versus Hearts match last year. He gave a penalty to Hearts of Oak that even television replays showed that the ball hit the back of the player. I mean, it went to the committee, they said they reviewed it, came back to tell us that the ball hit his hand. Now, Anas goes underground, and let me say this, in as much as I want to understand the legal issues surrounding his methods, I want to say this. There has been a perception of corruption around our game. For me, going about this game, I don't believe there is any other way you can go in there to establish the truth of that perception unless you go in hiding things. And see, Anas did not force the referees to take the money. There were two people in the video who told the investigators that, look, I don't do my job this way. I will not do what you are saying. Even when they persisted, they said, no, go away with your money. If you compare that conduct to the conduct of the others, there were others who took it and even said things suggesting that that has been their business. And I was talking about Suka. Suka, apart from taking money, took a goat. And I'm saying that it is as if we have
to be taken to the abattoir.
Of course.
He had money to buy the ingredients.
He wanted it to be taken to the abattoir. He said the abattoir is closed. He said, but I'll come back the following morning.
See, my argument is this. If you want to be a referee, and they tell us that it is not a profession, it's a hobby. They go into it as a pastime, whatever it is. You go into it, you are taken through the process, you get to the level of a FIFA referee. And I'm saying that if you can go through all that processes and exchange that FIFA badge, which some people attach so much importance to, you exchange that with a goat, I mean, with 500 cedis. I mean, I cannot understand but accept the fact that you are corrupt. And there were several instances. We have the FA's executive committee where people sit and take decisions for our game. Now, 3 or 4 people on this committee were caught also accepting bribes. Another instance that surprised me was the Eastern Regional Football Association chairman. Here was a man holding fixtures or the league table of competitions he's supposed to supervise, telling the investigators that we can even help fix these matches to ensure that these teams get the sort of results that you don't want to, you want them to get. And I'm saying that this is the person supposed to lead football in the region. So assuming Anas even tempted you, in that leadership position, you're supposed to know better.
Right.
People are putting in money to make sure young boys and girls in these communities play football. I mean, to help whatever careers that they have. Some go to school, they still want to play football. People are making investments. And you take 2,000, 4,000 cedis to run down these investments. And people are talking about methods. I believe that Anas is doing a good job in as much as people have the right to test his methods in court, I mean, to question it. Let us also accept the fact that the system in which we are living in is a rotten one. And if we want to get rid of the rot, we would have to employ methods that may not be conventional. That may not
should be within the law.
No, I'm not. I'm not disagreeing.
Including causing your team to
I'm not disagreeing. But I'm only saying that we need to look at how we can deal with the problem. Anas's methods may not be acceptable, but that is what he's chosen to do. We can continue to talk about it and maybe streamline it and see what we can do to get rid of the situation. Because it's difficult for me to accept certain things. The executive committee, again, there was a woman on the committee, and this is...
Tell me, how many members of the executive committee were caught on there?
If I add the FA person, I think 4.
4 of them.
4. And there are 22.
Yes.
And I'm saying that if you have 4 members of a committee supposed to be driving Ghana football being compromised, I mean, we cannot move our football forward.
Let me ask a follow-up question then. I mean, in the run-up to the showing of this expose, I think the general commentary was that would see lots of GFA officials on there caught up in all sorts of, unlawful acts and all. Now, it comes out, we see it, the commentary around suggests that there seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to have been more referees caught on there doing wrong things than GFA officials. So my question then is, does that necessarily justify what is being put out there that the GFA is rotten? So the entire GFA is rotten? Because like you just said, 4, including Mr. Nyantichi himself, that's 4 members of the executive committee out of 22. That isn't even up to, I don't think that's about 30% of the membership of the executive committee. So is the narration that the GFA is rotten in its entirety, is it justified from the evidence we have currently?
It is justified. And even if it was 1, I will still justify what Anas did. Look, we have
not what Anas did, but the evidence we're getting.
Yeah.
So if we could just distill
I will still justify it. And this is what I would say. We have the only woman on the committee who, until Wednesday, I mean, I've known her to be a very good woman. You see her, you will not associate her with certain things. But she took a bribe of 300 cedis. And the question I'm asking is,
did she take money or bribe?
Well, she took money. 300 cedis.
To do what?
To influence a game.
And she did influence.
As match commissioner.
But
does the outcome really matter?
You see, I think it does. Just a minute. Okay, Jerome, you carry on. Let Jerome carry on. Because we are coming in with them quickly, yes.
That's my problem with the legalities of it.
But that's...
If you come to me and say... No, I understand. But if you come to me and say, Michael, take money. I'm offering you X amount of money to influence the coverage of an issue, and it is wrong to take the money. Does it matter if that influences my coverage?
It does.
If somebody gives you money as a referee to say, do you know the laws pertaining to the game? The woman was a match commissioner.
No.
The FIFA rules, you are not expected to accept anything.
But you're looking at a crime which needs to be which needs to be proved.
But this is you see, my problem is this: Anas's investigation was situated within the laws of football.
No.
That's why the Kenyan referee who accepted a gift of 600. That Kenyan referee was not officiating in any Ghana match. Anas did not ask him to do anything relating to any match. But by the simple rules of World Football Governing Body, you are not accepted.
Exactly, which I totally understand, and I believe Mr. Paul gets it. It's just in the context. If you need to prove or establish that, it needs to have influence,
in the video in some Wafa games and the rest. When Anas gave the referees the money, and the referees agreed to do it, and the match didn't go that way, but they accepted the money. They accepted the money.
So that at the very least, that would go to an issue of ethics or morality. But whether it could establish the crime of bribery would be another thing.
We will leave it for the lawyers.
That's fine, yes.
But even, like Michael is saying, even going by the rules of the game, you are not supposed to take it.
Which is fine, yes.
And I was saying that, I mean, to answer your question, even if it was one person, it still raises questions about the capability of the FA to manage football in this country.
Oh, that's interesting.
No, of course, because if you have the whole FA chairman, if you have the whole FA chairman talking about having to create a company to take part of the money and then put it somewhere, and this is something we have had suspicions over.
In relation to football?
Yes.
No.
No. Allow Jerome to make his point, and then we can move on to
the argument I'm making is that even if it was one person caught in this video doing things against the rules of the game, we have cause to ask why that should be done, because the rules of the game says you are not supposed to do that. And we have 4 of them, and I'm still wondering why 3 of them are still on the committee. They have no moral authority to be on that committee because
they've been accused.
Oh yes, but how do you we will leave the legal issues for the court to determine.
Yes,
but
totally
on purely ethical reasons.
You
and
think
that is why FIFA took the action they took yesterday on purely ethical reasons.
Which is yes, and which leads me to quickly another question.
Fair enough. So they should leave.
But
and then after investigations, if they are cleared, they can come back.
For somebody like Mr. Nyantichi himself, had it not been for FIFA's intervention, he would still be on GFA as the president, wouldn't
Probably.
it? Exactly.
Probably.
So going to buttress your point about why, I mean, the other three are still on, then the answer clearly is that, I mean, they don't feel the need to.
The other three should understand that now, as they are on that, I don't have any respect for the committee as we speak now. And I've said that if I was a member of that committee, I will resign in protest of the conduct of those members.
Very well. Let me quickly move to Honorable here. You've heard the three speakers. What are your thoughts on this? Did you haven't seen the entire thing you said, but you've seen snippets of it, and you've obviously followed the commentary.
Sure.
Do you share the views that have been put out so far?
Yes, I mean, I think that sports, for that matter, football, is a game that has a very huge public following. And every Ghanaian would want to see, especially football, soccer works.
Sure.
I mean, in the past, we've mainly done well in the areas of football and, say, boxing. And so, for the past 8 years, many of us have had worry, especially with the performances of the Ghana football. And there has been a lot of allegations. That's where my interest has always been, especially after the Brazil World Cup and the issue to do with player selections and how they have to be influenced before they select players. So I personally have had a sort of interest in those sort of allegations, Kevin Prince Boateng's point of view and the rest of them.
Solomon Tyrese.
Yes, and all of them. But you see, the point here is that the game is a game of evidence. And for me, that is where I would support the cause of using undercover journalism to reveal what is under the radar. That is the issue at stake. Yeah, because really much, I have my own issues about the methods used by ANAS. That's no two ways about it. But when I read about the Society of International Journalism, they have always supported that undercover journalism should be used scarcely, rarely, in areas that you really have to get the truth, because your journalism practices says that you should report the truth and not telling a lie to reveal the truth. And that is where the international debate on undercover journalism has been used, that it should not be sting operation, it should not be subterfuge, it should not be surreptitious and all sorts of things that they have argued, and there's always international debate on this. Be it as may, what has been revealed? It is so clear. It is so clear, but we'll have to go into it. I'm happy that the Ghana Police Service has coded the place, and now it's a crime scene. We are going to go down to find out all those who are linked, because I'm sure probably is a mafia, is a complexity of issues, is manifested, is festered up in the whole society, and there are a lot of game players who are sitting somewhere and us could not find out. This is the time for us to grab all of them. That is the truth. That is my point. My point is that we should extend it beyond. Anas has done a very good job. He has given us a recipe, and now we have to cook it up, where you have to grab all these people, because the mafiaism is so huge. I mean, why would I be influenced if corruption is something to go by? My course of work. If I take even one CD to make a decision, whether it's kind or cash or any means to make a decision, it has been corrupted. When you were mentioning this woman, commissioner, taking 300. I am taking 300, that take 300 Ghana cedis. This is gifts. Oh, thank you for... your match was nice. I mean, you guys did what, take 300 Ghana cedis. For me, I'll take it, because hey, I didn't take it before the game. But if you talk to me about
the rules of the game do not allow that. That is clearly
right. That's even so. I mean, I'm saying that if you give me a thank you, a thank you for something I've done that will not influence.
Is there anything like thank you in the rules?
Okay, that's it.
Clearly,
but now you give me something to make a decision before I go on the phone. And then you are influencing me. And you took the money. Whether it is a bribe, not bribe, or whatever.
On the side
you
of
see,
the game.
tomorrow yes, I mean, the point is that you are corrupt. Corruption don't have boundaries. So long as you exhibit one of them, that is it. It means you are not credible, and you can transmit it to several forms. That's the issue at stake. The issue is even if it's in court, a lawyer would want to waste a lot of time to show that you are not credible.
Not waste a lot of time. Put in industry.
You spend a lot of time. That's the point. You spend a lot of time. Somebody would make a case and just will spend all the time just to say you are not credible. It is a powerful position, because if you are as worse as the message itself, then it gives a strong impression in the judge's mind. So for me, any bit of it, however that you are involved in, where you are in an official capacity, you must go, and we must find the rest out, because you see, we have not been doing well. I scored in Leeds, and when I go in Leeds, people will find you, hey, Ghanaian, Tony Yeboah. And you know, before Leeds Stadium was Tony Yeboah's edifice, huge one. You know, so you are so proud that soccer, if for anything at all, soccer sells you. And everybody would want to be a good ambassador for the country. You've run a sold down for a period. It is an emotional position for all of us. And no matter how it is, I'm happy Nyantechi took the wisest of decisions yesterday to step out. I was even wondering why, for the period of 4 or 5 days. Wasn't that
by compulsion or by operation of the effect of FIFA's ban?
Even by conscience. Even by conscience. You were able to have resigned from the Executive Council of FIFA. Then it went to what? WAFU. But for that Ghana that took you there, you were holding up to it.
But doesn't that tell us something about our culture here, or subculture? As in, if he thought it appropriate or deemed it appropriate to resign from those global positions, but rather stuck to his guns here, it speaks volumes.
It speaks volumes. That also tells you that
he has not resigned from any of the global positions. No, not even one.
Very well. So then okay, then that's that.
But what was the news about the FIFA thing?
It was wrong. FIFA actually issued the ban in the afternoon,
right?
Around a period when an executive committee meeting was going on. Nyantechi had decided, I think about 2 hours before, that it was time to go. He came to the point where he felt,
as it were?
Yes,
okay.
But he has not. He's still a member of the CAF executive committee, well. And until the 90-day period, when the 90-day period expires, he is still 45. He's still a member of the FIFA Council.
All right, that's an issue at stake, but that's good. You said that people don't have to interfere into your game. So now I think the morality behind that decision is more to do with the fact that, okay, if we don't want them to interfere, okay, so the ethics committee, the investigative part of the ethics committee says that, okay, you have 90 days to step aside. Don't get yourself involved in anything sports. So that is it. And he stepped aside. But in that case, he has resigned.
From GFA. And
also those members in the executive committee that are now found initially, I mean, those other three, they must also leave. They must also leave, because credibility is the name. Now we have to rebuild the whole system, and we need to get confidence in the consumer, the public. I mean, so I would have to spend money. And the sponsors are looking at the coefficients of everything that happens. You know, it's disheartening, totally disheartening. And for that matter, the
speaking of sponsors, would
yes.
you or do you anticipate a situation where perhaps we'll be seeing sponsorships being pulled out?
Obviously,
sponsors being pulled.
It is rational behavior of everybody as a stakeholder.
Elsewhere it would have happened immediately, but here it seems
exactly. If you use issues to do with the creative arts, the Cosby suspicion allegation, this we have withdrawn. Issues as this, sponsors don't want even their name to be tainted.
But I'm hearing that the sponsors of the Premier League, Xylophone Media, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, are perhaps adhering to the principle of innocence until proven guilty, to say that until it's done, they are not. But that is quite, perhaps it's quite admirable, but it departs from the norm we see happening elsewhere. Because, I mean, instantly you would see sponsors, you know, pulling.
Yes, pulling. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with you in your position. But just to add to it, in the past, we have had issues with sponsorship of kind of football. But the question is why? Sponsors don't have a lot of confidence in the system. So this is a time to rebuild. And nobody has to be spared. You don't have to harbor anybody. You don't have to harbor anybody. So for me, this is the finest opportunity to track all those people. You were asking the question of why was it taking long for GFA president after they aired it on for everybody to say why was it taking long for him. Probably he was waiting for the executive committee meeting to have done that. But on a matter of principle, he could have done it earlier, or people have thought that he had a certain cloud that can control those underneath, okay? And that is where I'm coming from. I've had other persons in your Congress or persons who have been arguing for him and arguing for him, and I always tell myself, yes, that is a cycle. That's a cycle, that's a cycle. And we must go after all these people. For me, if FIFA will ban us for 4 years because we are trying to do house cleansing exercise and bounce back in the Grand Star, hey, ban us, even Nigeria. They banned themselves for 2 years. So even Mr. President, you can even say that in national competitions you are out for 5 years. We are not afraid of FIFA banning. We want to change the course of kind of football. That's the issue.
Very well. Well, thank you. Let me just go back to Michael. I know you'd want to react to certain things that were said, but I have a specific question here, which has to do with perhaps the content of the work. Some have had cause to say that perhaps this piece of documentary wasn't comprehensive and that there were certain follow-ups that had to be done in respect of going on to see the outcome of certain payments to be able to, as it were, lock things in that, yes, this happened. And also in terms of the value chain of football, you're looking at football as encompassing more than just referees and perhaps, executive committee members. You're looking at club owners, you're looking at other football administrators, because at the end of the day, you're trying to establish a fact that, like Honorable said here, it's quote-unquote a mafia. So the mafia is quite extensive, but we didn't see exactly those elements play out so that we would have had, a sense of the entire picture. Do you share in that view?
Not exactly, because, and I say this from a purely journalistic perspective, there's so much you can tackle in one project. I think what Anas clearly did was he had a fair idea of what he wanted to expose. He wanted to expose a compromised refereeing system. I think there's no doubt that he did it brilliantly. He wanted to expose a system. You asked Jerome a question about whether the 4 were enough to suggest a rotten system. Here was the problem. Anas just didn't expose referees. Anas exposed referee appointment officials who were happily taking money and agreeing in conversations that the monies they've taken as a result will result in influencing the sort of officials they pick for specific games. That's huge. It's significant. And the referees appointment committee is supposed to be one of the most sacrosanct bodies of the Football Association. Edidoku is a member of the management committee of the Black Stars. But Edidoku took 10,000 cedis in a conversation with a clear understanding that he will influence the call-up of a player into the national team. I don't care whether he's guilty or not. As far as I'm concerned, it's wrong. It's wrong. I don't need for him to go to a court to go and prove himself. He cannot sit on that executive committee, whatever the legalities of the situation is. And you know why FIFA banned Nyantichi yesterday? FIFA's ethics committee has a simple rule. When a case is brought before it, it looks at it and decides whether there is a case to answer. During that period, it doesn't want you involved in anything that allows you to have any influence on the process. The Ghana Football Association has an ethics committee. The Ghana Football Association is supposed to derive a lot of its rules. FIFA sort of provides the lead and you go. So FIFA has term limits, we create term limits, and that sort of thing. But the first statement the Ghana Football Association released was, as they are right, questioning the process that Tiger Eye went through, spoke about the referees in very vague terms, said to us how they would go through the process. They didn't mention for one moment their top 4 executives who were seen on video taking monies. There was somebody who was supposed to look at the status committee. The status committee is one of the most controversial committees in this country. It's a committee that decides whether a player is fit enough to play a game. And he was taking money saying, I can get anything done. Wow. What again do I need? The guy was taking money saying, I will get anything done, don't worry, once you bring the player. So this sort of person is able, is easily able to change the date of birth, to change the age of the player. Do you know why the league goes on hold for so long on a regular basis? Because these things happen on a lot of time. So it would have been nice if Anas had follow up on a lot of it. And part of the documentary. For instance, in instances where he gives some of the referees money, he says the referee didn't live up to the deal. The match ended in favor of the team that they didn't want. But you see, that's the point I'm making is that like in the Suka case in the Haas Kotoko game, when he gave the last minute penalty, it was evidence that he had carried through the deal. But the other parties, do we expect a situation where, okay, are we suggesting in any moment that, okay, it's okay for the referee to sit down and do these discussions and take the money and then go onto the pitch and then refuse to do it? How many points do we then know that when he takes the money, he will do the same thing? These are referees who are lying in hotel rooms and the rest, taking monies, telling an undercover reporter that, you know, don't worry, this is something we do on a regular basis. Take us as your friend.
It's about the relationship.
You know, it's relationships and that sort of thing. So a lot of the things about where this goes from here and all that really has to be a complete cleansing of the system. And I say it's a complete rot because it just wasn't referees, it was appointing officials, it was officials who were supposed to take administrative decisions, it was the man who was supposed to lead, the chief custodian of the Ghana Football Association.
So you think what we saw with that, the expose is representative of what is happening?
I think it is. I mean, you see, for instance, you know, based on some of the conversations with the guys close to the investigations, and I simply studied a pattern of misdeeds in the past.
What will get them?
There was, and that's what a good journalist does. You set out to work, and I'm sure for lawyers, one of the reasons you study a lot of cases in the past to get an idea of precedents is to be able to argue cases on that score. So you prepare based on things that have happened. There was a meaty controversy about sponsorship money in the past. There's been huge questions asked of our relationship with Puma and how much money we get. Rightly, the GFA decided that it was not going to tell us how much was involved in the xylophone deal, but there was major controversy about how much percentage was going to an agent. The monies agents take has been a major source of dispute. Specifically, journalists have accused Mr. Nyantichi in the last 13 years, especially since we went to the World Cup, on a regular basis, that every time there has been a sponsorship deal, whether he has been the one who's initiated it, there's been a specific allegation that he's formed companies on the side to siphon off the agency fee. And I saw the same man sit on video, discuss in very clear, audible terms. How do we and discuss in audible terms how so we will set aside a company, my company, and we will put 20 to 25%.
In other words, saying that confirming the allegations.
He saw that all of us here will be sorted. He was willing to take 25% of $50 million. What do I need again to know that somebody like this is not fit to lead?
Very well. We'll need to take a break. But when we come back, quickly, I'll take from you your opinion about Xylophone's decision to, because you seem to be holding the belief that, I mean, you don't need to be proven guilty. I mean, what we've seen is sufficient. But you have the sponsor saying, well, we'll stick with them until they're proven guilty. So we'll come back and then we will continue with this very hot topic. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Newday Saturday edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're streaming online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we're still looking at the aftermath of the number 12, when greed and misconduct become the norm. It was shown on 6th March and went through to the next day on the 6th June, went on to the 7th of June as well, and it's got the whole country talking.
Independence Day for it.
It deserves that, I think. But anyways, Mike, I told you I'd come to you on this xylophone, and you know the fact that they are sticking to. I'm thinking it's, like I said, it's quite admirable that they would want to see a declaration of guilt before they'll take any steps. But quite clearly, it seems to be contrary to what.
It's a disastrous public relations stance.
Okay.
In law, they're doing the right thing. They want to see it through. I'm just wondering, I don't know whether Nana Piamensa, the head of the group, is the one who issued a tweet to say that they wanted, we should all stay calm. But you see, the problem is, and I think that speaks to what lawyer said earlier on about how viewings like this sort of makes people's minds up before everything. And Nana Piamensa's company is sponsoring a league where referees happily take money and agree to determine the outcome of games, where those who appoint the officials are happy to do that. He sat down and signed a deal with a man who was speaking about taking 20 to 25% of a sponsorship deal. I sit here and ask myself questions about what happened in the xylophone deal now.
Well, at the time, perhaps he didn't know xylophone.
He didn't know. No, I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting he knows. I'm just building up to a point.
Sure.
Given all this evidence that has come, and unless Mr. Nyantichi says he didn't say those things, but he seemed to want to back him up until it's gone through the legal processes. It's admirable from a PR perspective, from every communication that I've studied and from all the trends I've noticed around the world. If Tiger Woods sleeps with another woman, the following day, every sponsorship arrangement he has is gone. If you are caught in a drug situation, even before, and normally in drug test, your A sample is taken and your B sample must be taken as well. The moment your A sample says that you've suggests that you've committed an offense against the drug laws, sponsors are scrambling all over away from you. So xylophone wants to stick there. That's their business. I don't think there are not a lot of sponsors. I will be interested in what Puma says, because Puma comes from a completely different dispensation, and for them this might be a more complicated situation. But you know, fair play to him if he wants to stick by it. Unfortunately for him, every football activity has been suspended. The GFA issued a statement yesterday and said that they were suspending every football activity, and they were very quick to add on directives by the government. I think that is what eventually will trigger the FIFA action, because government then cannot direct you to stop your football. But we'll be looking
at the implications of that, because I think that is a real fear that people are having. And I mean, if FIFA should come in with a ban, what the implications are and all, we'll be looking.
It's a fear that people are prepared to face.
Yes. So let me take some messages that have come through. This is Mustafa in Tamale Polytechnic, I believe in Tamale. He says, the rotten GFA is too much, and I commend His Excellency President Nanado for dissolving it. Okay, it's not been dissolved yet, so let's just watch that space. It hasn't been dissolved. There's a decision that's been taken, but it's yet to be executed. I'm shocked Mr. Kwesi Nyantichi doesn't find any wrongdoing in documentary. Mr. Nyantichi intended to... Okay, there are certain words here. People are already being very categorical and, you know, yes. So I'm going to have to, you know, take it as I go in a more appropriate way. So Nyantichi intended to, quote-unquote, steal his own people from his own people $4.5 million of a proposed sponsorship deal, and we couldn't find that captured in his resignation letter. Anyway, he can now focus on his political career, as he said he will be a politician in the next 2 years. Good luck to him. This is Kwame coming from Accra, Newtown. Abna, good morning to you and your panelists. How come you did not invite any NDC member for this morning discussion? Well, let me just put it out. I think it was an oversight on my part. I was to have said this. We were expecting an NDC representative, but Victor Kojoga Adawudu, a member of the NDC legal team, he told us he had an emergency this morning, so he couldn't come. So you didn't add your name, but whoever you are that you sent this mail, I hope you're listening, and it's not a planned thing or deliberate thing to keep them out here. They were invited, but they haven't shown up yet. Ike from Amrahia says, as for Suka, he's not new to things like this. His old students of... Okay, I will skip that. Good morning, Abna, to you and your panelists, especially Michael TJ, who I must say I know since the days of writing for Africa Sports. Abna, it's so shameful, disgraceful, shocking, and embarrassing to the whole nation. What has he done to our president? I miss the revolutionary days. Should he? No. Okay, I'm not carrying on with that. Abna, good morning to you and your panelists. Listening to the submission of some of your panelists, I think we need to be careful how far we want to push the boundaries of individual freedoms. Going by such submissions, which wrongdoer would agree to go ahead and collect a bribe if he has been told that he is being recorded. Corrupt persons undertake their activities in the dark, so if they are being caught using same means, why should some people, especially lawyers, have problems with that? The ultimate goal of every endeavor should be our utmost priority. That's Sam in East Legon. I think I'll pull the brakes on the messages here and return to the panel. Ms. Opo, definitely I'm coming. I knew you would want to have a piece of that, so I'll come to you. But again, we would now, I'd want us to launch into the conversation around the government's decision to dissolve and that whole debate that is coming, whether it's legal or not legal. This is... the GFA is a company limited by guarantee, so definitely it's subject to the rules of or the provisions in the Companies Act. And by extension, you would have also the Bodies Corporate Liquidations Act governing such a procedure. So as to the question about whether government can do it or not, I believe government can within the right procedures as specified by these various laws. So yes, please take us off with what you wanted to say regarding the last comment and then into the dissolution conversation.
I mean, just to say that, I mean, no one is condoning wrongdoing. I will be the last person to do that. My only worry is that we have enshrined in our constitution a very powerful provision that no one is guilty until proven guilty by a court or through proceedings in a court of competent jurisdiction, or that he has confessed to the commission of an offense in accordance with law. If we don't like this provision, we should remove it from our constitution. Of course, it's difficult. Someone will say, wait until an offense is committed against you. Yes, it will pain me, I'll be enraged, but that cannot be a substitute for law.
Right.
So if you think that, because you see the danger of pronouncing someone guilty even before he's taken to court is also to punish him instantly. And that is what brings about this instant injustice thing. That is my worry. And not that when I see someone stealing a phone, I will say that he has not committed an offense. In my mind, in fact, that is what the charge the police will bring against them, the person. But the police charges don't end it. It has to be taken to court, because we've seen instances where people have been charged with offenses, and as I said earlier, a court may convict him. An appellate court has set the person free. So we just have to be careful. If we continue to let the people understand that when you see somebody committing an offense, he has committed an offense, is a convict, then why don't we take him to his own straight away by even go to the police? That is my worry. So I'm not condoning anything, because as a lawyer, and you see, politicians, some politicians have been accused of stealing state money. But you see what is going on? Just 2 days ago, the Supreme Court has said that every document, every data, every information that has come that has been received by the prosecution, once it's requested, unless the prosecution thinks that it will be against public interest and so on, they may withhold it. But even that, the people, the accused, may go to court for another, and if the judge agrees, to compel them to produce it.
Right.
This is what we have chosen for ourselves.
And
rule of
to
law.
just add to that, there are also defenses. So yes, you may see somebody pick something you think is not theirs, but they perhaps had that belief that they had a claim of right to it, which could let them
made the law, and we have put in defenses for these people. That is the only problem. Now, when you go into the issue of whether or not GFA has been dissolved, and I think that for me, with all due respect, it's a bit shameful or disheartening that the Minister for Sports will appear to be defiant. I mean, defiant of an executive decision. Until now, he has not even found it necessary to apologize. He erred. If it was due to inadvertence, or he didn't know at the time, which I'll be surprised, he should just come out to clarify that when I said the GFA has been dissolved with all certainty, and all the consequences spelled out from him, I was not aware that the president has instructed the Minister for Information to put out the president, because the minister is an agent.
He actually issued that. I think he granted those interviews from the presidency at the time. He was there with him, so there's no way he would know.
The minister is an agent of the president. Yeah. Of course, the acts of an agent, we always know, it can be imputed to the principal. But when the principal gives an instruction that is inconsistent with yours, that will prevail. And I think that is what has caused the confusion. Even on BBC, they say that the GFA has been dissolved. You see?
But then you question the BBC's, cross-checks then?
Yes, well, I mean...
Please, I did a cross-check.
Well, but of course, they will, because of the system they run, they will go for the Minister of Sports information, because that is what they believe should prevail, and not what the Minister of Information.
Right.
But our system is an executive system, and therefore it is what the president says. And if it's inconsistent with any other person's view, it's the president's one that
could it be the case that he didn't understand exactly what that word meant?
Well, see,
Maybe
he got advice. But it's a simple English. Government is to
take steps.
is two. The two alone should tell you that even if a decision has been made, its implementation is in abeyance.
Right.
You understand? Now, going into whether or not it can even be touched. And that is why, I mean, the president is a lawyer. I mean, even if he's not, experienced public officer, we all know that you cannot just get up and dissolve a company. Even if it was formed by you, you have no right to dissolve it. And so people will say, oh, I haven't operated my company for the past 3 years. It doesn't mean that because of that it has ceased to exist and it cannot be fixed with consequences of its existence, whether positively or negatively. So as you rightly mentioned, there are procedures. When powers are given to officers to the exclusion of others, I think we must go by it. The Registrar General or the Attorney General, incidentally, the Registrar General is also under the Attorney General, as far as I know. And even their decision is not final in matters like this, you go to court with a petition that you believe that upon specified stated grounds, for example, a company has been set up specifically and has just come to your notice for purposes of committing fraud. That one, since the company's object wouldn't have included the commission of fraud, they have even from the beginning deviated from the objects of the company. And it cannot be allowed to exist. But just to say, as the minister has said, that the GFA has been dissolved and all the actions cannot be implemented and all that, I think is just totally wrong. And the best,
it has been done.
It's not been dissolved.
It has not been dissolved. The right decision is what came from the presidency. But you see, and my point is that if the minister's one is now to prevail, in my humble view, that is a wrong move.
Totally.
It's a wrong move. It's not consistent with law. When the law provides a procedure by which a thing must be done, it is only by that procedure. You can't go against it.
And specifically in respect of this particular case, you're looking at the grounds. In fact, it's just one ground, like you said, which is that the business or objects of the company are unlawful, or the company is operated for an illegal purpose, or the business being carried on by the company is not authorized by its
and let's emphasize that the Supreme Court, at least on one occasion, has emphasized that the GFA is not a public body. It was not a body established by statute. Roxon versus GFA. It was quite clear, and they stated categorically. And that is why they even refused to apply certiorari or any of those writs to enforce or quash the decision of GFA. They have made it clear. You have issues about sponsorship and the influence of the state. If the state decides that we are not even going to apply public money like we did gleefully to Brazil, where we had to buy even straw before we can drink coconut. That's the most annoying part. That is the most annoying part. That now we have to spend money to buy straw before we drink coconut. Anyway, so that is very clear. Of course, there has been another case, King Faisal, as the GFA disciplinary committee, where the High Court just said, look, in a way he disagreed with the Supreme Court decision, but of course, he said that I'm bound by it. Because in his view, in view of the enormity of the amount of money and the state's involvement, if the state doesn't even provide stadium or stadia, there's no way GFA, especially football, can even find, because the GFA doesn't have their own football pitches. And
sorry to cut you, but which leads me to, I mean, I have another question, and I believe the sports journalist here would please be thinking about it before I come to you. I know the GFA was not set up as a company limited by guarantee from way back. It's something that happened recently. So perhaps let us understand, when you have the opportunity to speak or address, tell us why the need for that position, as in moving it from whatever entity it was to becoming a company limited by guarantee. I find that quite interesting. So I would want us to
I think it's better this way, because in that case, it removes the human element of it. It makes it an institution or a body which is independent of those who form it or its officers, and that for me is very unique. And the matter really now is, to what extent can the state intervene? This is not also to mean that if the GFA itself is involved in the commission of crime or any other prohibited act, the state cannot come in. Not at all.
So let's bring this home to the specific, the piece of evidence we have.
Yes.
Looking at what we have now, would government be justified to trigger the provision here which requires that the sole ground by which such a petition or such a process could be triggered to lead to a dissolution of the company? Do you think, looking at what we have, do you think it fits that the business or objects of the company are unlawful, or the company is operated for an illegal purpose? Do you think that from what we've seen, you can say that one, the business or objects of the company are unlawful, or that the company is being operated for an illegal purpose?
Well, from the limited facts that I have, I think it may not be appropriate. In the sense that, one, it happened to customs. We didn't dissolve customs. And a lot of people, you can observe or remember President Nelson's...
But customs is a state, it's a statutory body, isn't it?
Yes. So if you can do it to a private company, why not a state institution? The point I'm making is that, and you remember President Nelson's serious revulsion, which a word you used, to what order had happened. The fact that individuals in an institution have engaged in even proven misconduct. So a few judges are accused of engaging in some immoral act. So you dissolve the judiciary. Now, and that leads me to the earlier issue. You see, the example we give about Tiger Woods and all these other people,
Harvey Weinstein and all
they
of that,
were
Hollywood and all.
sponsored as individuals. Xylophone or any sponsor doesn't sponsor Nyantechi or a referee. There is no evidence that GFA itself is being used as a tool to defraud or commit fraud.
Not even when you see 3 or 4 members of its executive committee.
3 or 4 or its executives may have been accused of wrongdoing. Let's put that aside. But that doesn't mean that the entire institution has now become a tool for the commission of fraud. And fraud, you know, must always be proven in a court of law. So any allegation about fraud even is not a ground.
So xylophone stand by me thing till the end is appropriate in the circumstances?
Well, that is a business decision they are taking. Oh, you know, based on this, they have also made representations with some financial institution and gotten a loan or some financial assistance. How do they go there and tell them that because of this, we have withdrawn? How are they going to also pay for it? So just to conclude on this, sorry. So my point is that if individuals have been accused and we think the enormity of it means that they must suffer some liability, remove them. Use
deal with
the
appropriate process and not the entire.
Appropriate process permitted by the Companies Act to remove them. And that decision can be taken by the board and all that will matter, stakeholders. But I think it may, upon the second thought, it is more appropriate or even better for us to deal with the individuals as far as the Companies Act permits, rather than throwing the baby with the bath water, the dirty bath water. And if we don't want, we want sponsors to leave, who is it that is going to sponsor us? We are just doing so to then even finally annihilate the GFA. But we need it.
Quickly, let me get from Jerome here. Is it the case that GFA is funded by the public?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of. Because because I'm hearing this and I just wanted that confirmation. Okay, so clearly it operates as a private entity and it has its own way of funding itself.
But when it comes to, what I know is that when it comes to the national teams, the GFA relies on the government or the sports ministry.
So invariably, they have support from the state.
Yes, and that
significant support.
Yes.
And if I may also ask, the stadiums, are
exactly,
they owned by the GFA?
No,
but they pay for the use. It's an arrangement of how gate fees and the rest are split. The clubs don't use the stadiums for free. The GFA, when the Black Stars play a game, doesn't use the stadium.
Very well. So back to Jerome and then
let me touch on a few issues. I think that with the statement from the government and the comments by the minister, I don't know why the minister went the way he did. I don't know whether he was excited over the whole thing.
Overzealous.
I mean, he should have left those comments for people on the street, excuse me to say, because I read the statement. I didn't see anything like a total dissolution. And then minutes later, heard him on radio, and he answered specific questions the same way. For instance, he was asked what happens to the league this weekend. Then he said, look, the GFA is dissolved. The interviewer asked him, the Black Stars is playing a few hours from now. What happens to the team that is playing? His answer was, look, the GFA is dissolved. And I kept wondering why he was going that way, because the statement was
quite clear.
What was said in the statement and what he was saying, I mean, we're not the same. And I think that maybe upon some reflection, he should come back, either apologize to the public or make us understand why he said those things. And now on xylophone,
would an explanation even justify what he said clearly?
Well, but we are humans. Maybe he had some basis that we don't know. Now to xylophone, I read a tweet by Nana Appiah, and then read a story in the Graphic Sports quoting the PR manager of the company, and even with that, I saw some contradiction. Maybe Nana Appiah is taking his friendship or association with the FA president to a certain level that the PR manager of the company doesn't know. Because from what I read, Halifax, the PR manager of Xylophone, said that they haven't come to that point. But if there is something in there that they feel should let them pull out, they might look at it. But Nana Appiah, if you take what Nana Appiah said, Nana Appiah was saying that the man is innocent until proven guilty.
So there too we see some variance between what the CEO is saying and then at the level of the state you see some inconsistency with what the minister of sports is saying and what the minister.
Same thing.
So many
which is okay. But I seriously think that Xylophone should also gauge the public reaction. And that is why I find it okay that we are not playing football until all these matters are resolved. Because the public are not interested in going to even watch football. People feel that this is an opportunity for us to cleanse the system. Because a lot of, I mean, growing up and following football, an impression was created that FIFA was a monster, such that if there is something wrong with a member association,
it's a jealous monster,
and then you do something to correct that member association, FIFA will come at you. But if you look at what happened to Sepp Blatter, Michel Platini,
so why didn't we dissolve FIFA?
You get the feeling that FIFA was not sacrosanct after all, and that is why I share the public feeling that even if government is not dissolving GFA, but is going to take steps to do that, and that will warrant a FIFA ban, that ban should come, so that we use.
But how would that FIFA ban come in if government doesn't interfere?
Well, once, I mean, I don't know how the government interference is going to be, but I'm saying that if government will interfere, and then that will trigger a FIFA ban, that ban should come, so that we all sit back, look at what has gone wrong, and even if it's dealing with the individuals, FIFA should still ban us. We deal with those individuals, we clean the system, and then start afresh. Because we cannot play football
the way it is now,
with the sort of anger that people are feeling. I was happy to hear that police have gone to the GFA premises 2 or 3 days ago. I mean, just to guard the place, because people were angry. If you look at how.
But is it true that it's been declared a crime scene?
Yes, okay. I mean there was a statement to that effect, which is okay. Whatever they want to investigate, it is within their remit to do that. I am only saying that we shouldn't do things as if everything is by law. Indeed, there are laws.
But everything is by law.
Get me. I'm not saying.
I mean, I can't sit here and allow that statement to pass.
I'm not saying we should disregard the law. I mean, I want to be a law-abiding citizen, but I'm also saying
go to law school.
I am also saying that the sort of emotions out there shouldn't be disregarded because we want to satisfy the demands of the law.
We'll deal with that reaction within the framework of the law. I think that'll be fine.
Exactly. Because, I mean, someone issued some, there was a story I saw last night indicating that some referees have been appointed for some FA Cup matches. I was laughing because within this charged atmosphere, some of the referees that have been seen in the video, if they dare step out to any league center, people might behave in a way that we may not like it. And we have to consider all those things, in as much as we also want to go by what the law says.
Quickly, you talked about the FIFA example where Sepp Blatter was taken out. Now, in your earlier submissions, you said that, or you have opinion that the entire GFA is rotten, and so we need to deal with it. Rotten. But see what happened to FIFA. Of course, you would have more information about that, but clearly there wasn't a dissolution of FIFA. They dealt with the personalities.
Yeah.
Why do we seem to be, and again I go back to the question I put earlier, which is, it's just 4 of 24 executive committee members who were seen. Yes, let me hear you.
That's a valid question.
Yes.
Telling you the validity.
But look at the league, for instance. The league that we are playing now, which is on break, I mean, the first round of matches have ended. We have about 120 referees, 60 assistants, 60 center referees officiating. Now, if you look at the announced video, from what I read from the Crusading Guide, 66 of these referees are caught on tape.
I had 77.
Good. So the point I'm making is, if you have 120 referees officiating a competition, and more than half of these referees are compromised, how do you go on and play? So, in as much as we would want to deal with those individuals, if you take the case of the referees, there are too many that you cannot go on with the league competition. You see, it will, even if you want to get more referees, the appointments committee are also compromised.
So we need to clean up the system.
So a total cleansing, it's very important.
A total cleansing,
and we would have to look at it before we want to take any decision to go back and play.
Very well. Mike, and then I come to
a few things on the FIFA issue. Right. I think it's a bit wrong to suggest that FIFA was not, as a body, depicted as a rotten entity. I think we should maybe...
No, it was depicted as a rotten entity, but in dealing with the situation, they dealt with personalities, not a situation where...
But it wasn't a decision that was made by FIFA. It wasn't a decision that was made by FIFA. The FBI, based on several years, thankfully, of a sting operation, using Chuck Blazer, an American FIFA executive, as the main point of call, who took hidden microphones into meetings where people were discussing how they would put aside money. And this is an operation that spans several countries, Brazil, Paraguay, and the rest. All those individuals were dealt with individually. But the beautiful thing is that FIFA, in that moment, allowed itself to go through that process. They happily allowed the purge. The purge was on a criminal front. It is the same way, as I sit here, as the way the CID has taken over the premises of the Ghana Football Association. So the law is being applied in its right sense. Within the same context, when those issues came up, when the likes of Blazer and everybody were arrested, that infamous done in Zurich, the first thing FIFA as a body did was to, through its ethics committee, ban every single member of that. They didn't wait to say when the judicial process is done. No, they went through an ethics process and said almost immediately. Look, what did the GFA do? They issued a statement telling us basically complete nonsense. Everything is fine. You know, we are dealing with this in a really nice way. As far as so I think in many ways there's a parallel, and that's why I sort of admire the way government has handled this from day one. I think first of all, Nanado's decision to lodge a complaint to the police was a preemptive strike. For me, it was almost like a PR move to try to say, I want to be ahead of this story as quickly as I can be. When I look at the statement, government was trying to couch a language that will be acceptable within the legal framework. So they said, we are taking steps to dissolve it. We will come in the third line, and I think maybe that's where the Minister of Sports got a bit confused, because they said we'll communicate these decisions to CAF and to FIFA about how we can make the GFA better. And I have to be honest, you mentioned that BB's report, I did it. I almost felt at a certain point that was almost an admission of something that had been done already. So if you say you were going to communicate, but they were communicating the intention to dissolve the body. And I think the communication of that intention to dissolve the body was almost an invitation to FIFA to say, we have to sit down to have a chat. We cannot allow this to go on. And when people say... The
government taking cognizance of the fact that, yes, it respects the rules of FIFA, not to interfere, but in this case...
And I know that before all these happened, there had been communication between government officials and people inside FIFA to try to get a good understanding of how this will happen. Because everybody in government, and they've consulted far and wide too much to know that you just can't wake up one morning to do that. It's unfortunate that the minister got caught up in the situation he got up, because even by common reasoning, he was suggesting that in the moment he was speaking, which was like an hour and a half, at the time the Black Stars were in a bus in Rayeva going to the stadium, that game will not happen because of a FIFA ban. By simple reasoning. By the time the government made that decision, FIFA needed to sit down as a body and consider the decision that had been made. If a complaint is made first by the Ghana Football Association, has to say that, please, government is interfering in our affairs, and then FIFA will say, based on this, that meeting had not been held. If FIFA does not issue a statement to government and say, first of all, it will issue a letter to say, is this indeed true? And if you confirm, it will say. So there was a whole process. And if FIFA has not said, I have banned you from taking part in an international event, the Minister of Sports cannot ban you from taking part in an international event. So that was a bit unfortunate. But in terms of what the GFA is as a body and it's not, for a very long time, it operated as a public body. I know they used to operate in a civil servants facility close by the finance ministry. They operated that way. A lot of the GFA workers in the past were public servants who were paid with public funds. Beyond that, I think what the GFA really is, and maybe that's something we need to consider as a country, the GFA is a quasi-public body. This is a football association that gets significant subvention from government. Before we went to play Iceland, a body that's supposed to be a private organization took the contract for the game to the Ministry of Sports.
Which is why I'm wondering what informed the decision to move it from that entity to...
I think part of the... FIFA has... You see, you have a body which gains significant revenue from FIFA, which gains significant revenue from government, which is also supposed to operate as a business and bring in its own revenue through the various competitions and the drive for sponsorship that it undertakes. So you have three sources of funding, and every one of them sort of gives each of those components a bit of a strong say in how they are managed. In terms of FIFA, the offices that the GFA operates in now was paid for by FIFA. FIFA gives us about more than $500,000 a year to run various programs, including a development program they pay for the training of our referees, for our medical officers, for our coaches. They built for us that facility in Pram where we train everybody through the FIFA Go project that's intended to develop football in a lot of countries. And they've increased the money they give us on a regular basis. We earned $12 million from playing in the World Cup. The money that was flown in Brazil was supposed to have been a prepayment of that money. So FIFA has a significance. So we need to really fashion out something that allows all these bodies. And even by FIFA, there are specific regulations within FIFA that says that you need a public policy committee that sees to the interest of everybody who contributes to it. So there are specifics within the range. Because I'm not a lawyer, I don't want to speak to the issues of law, but I'm just wondering, when I look at...
The law was made by ordinary people.
No, but you see, when I look at whether the GFA and whether it can be dissolved or not, my simple reasoning is this. If a company that's limited by guarantee, but the guy who is the chief executive of that company, if anybody who was involved in this, if a private organization sets up a charity and then raises funds to personally enrich themselves, is that a crime?
He would definitely be a director of that company.
Yes, the chief executive
has
of
a
a
fiduciary responsibility or duty to the company. So clearly he would have gone contrary to that duty.
So this was the chief executive of the Ghana Football Association within this context, saying we will set up a company. Saying we will set up a company. Let's just say they had put in $50 million there, he would have taken it. He was saying that we'll set up a company, put 25 to 25% of the sponsorship money of $50 million aside. In addition, before then he said we'll take 5% of the money already has to go. So in effect, he was prepared to take about $4.5 million of that money there. He goes on to write an MOU, signs as Kwesi Nyantakyi for NAMAX, which is the company he wanted to set up, and signs for the GFA itself.
So there are conflict of interest issues here, clearly. And
it's not just conflict of interest. The guy is...
Very well. Let me move to Anubil here quickly. Definitely.
Intent.
I mean, we will just need to, go with due process and see how it turns out. I mean, I do appreciate that the public outrage is very is of a certain magnitude, but definitely we can't disregard due process in all of this, and that's what or how we should be conscientizing people at this point. Otherwise, given the level of agitation, you never know what would happen. But Honourable, let me hear you on this. I want you to look at the situation where some matches have come out clearly as having been compromised. Typical example is the Kotoko Hearts match where referee Suka refereed exactly took and then clearly yes. So now people are asking what becomes of such how do I put it, outcomes of those matches within the league and all of that, because people are making reference to, what happened in other jurisdictions, for instance, Italy and Juventus, for instance. It may not be, the facts may not necessarily be similar, but the outcome, which is that ultimately the game is compromised or the integrity of the game is compromised. So that's clearly what happened here. So what happens in the Suka refereed match, for instance, between Kotoko and Hearts? How do we deal with that?
If you say deal with that, it's happened already.
It's happened already, yes. But
so, I mean, dealing with that is just about where we correct the future.
Is there any possibility?
We correct ourselves and not to get this to be repeated. And for me, I think that is where all this issue, this dilemma of government crossing a line, and I mean the public crossing a line. Of course, the public will cross a line through government in terms of its actions, and also seeing the GFA as a private entity. For me, the GFA has all its powers to appoint all the various committees for referees and for all of this. And you see, you have a GFA which, in the midst of these challenges, did not come to reassure a lot and take drastic actions to give the confidence that it has a control and it is willing to change the course and even to reorganize. There was not that reassurance was not there. It was more of, we are more ready to cover up. You see, and that's the issue. We are more ready to cover up, and this is where the public, at the end of the day, it is a public spirited game. So the referee took the money, awarded a penalty. It wasn't the referee alone. Another was a match commissioner. Which other referee is doing it? Is it my other question? Which other match commissioner is doing it? Is this sort of a national is a cancer which has just festered round, and it is just manifesting on an occasion on the ANAS expose. So clearly over 60 referees, and that is where I support those who think that we should just collapse this GFA and rebuild it again. It is true. You see,
but speaking about the collapse, yes. The GFA is an association of registered football clubs in Ghana.
You see, is that the case? Michael, you are so much into sports. So when did FIFA give all this authority for GFAs to shift from?
You see, I mentioned to you just the quantum of money that FIFA puts in this.
So they have a say.
They say it's as significant as government. Government's involvement is largely when you are playing.
So all FA associations everywhere
in the world,
private now.
In fact, in England, when they wanted to start a parliamentary inquiry into the running of the English football, the Football Association in England, and FIFA thought they were crossing the line because they were asking for certain decisions to me. They wrote them a warning letter. It happened in Spain when the head of the Spanish Football Federation, as there were police that went to the offices. It was purely a criminal case, but they stepped in. There's a small line between what FIFA does. FIFA says that if people commit crimes, you are allowed within your laws to deal with them, but don't let that interfere with the running of the officials of the Football Association. So, and I keep giving the example of this. In Cameroon in 1998, before the World Cup, FIFA gives, so if we're going to the World Cup this year, they will give us the GFA tickets to sell to Ghanaian fans. And in Africa, it's become canon for that because the tickets are like visas. And you know the way we are with visas. So this guy sold quite a significant bit of the tickets on the black market. The General Secretary of the Cameroon Football Federation. He was arrested, he was prosecuted, but he was a General Secretary of the Football Association. FIFA did not say absolutely anything. Yes. FIFA allowed the process to go through. Yes. But FIFA will not agree that because you've arrested this guy for doing this on the black market, it is reason for you to say, I'm shutting down the Cameroon Football Federation.
All right, so as it is now, the investigations from the CID and these state agencies, all those that they're able to grab, essentially, will be those that will have to step aside. Yes,
exactly. So FIFA. That's why FIFA has no issue whatsoever with the CID investigation. The same way they had no issues with the FBI investigation. They are not going to
interfere with that kind of due process.
And so far they themselves have proven with the way they've dealt with Nyantichi that they are pretty fast.
For 90 days,
FIFA is just saying that we want to create strong institutions. And FIFA is saying that distinguish between the running of your government and the running of our football. And I think that's not just somebody who is jealous, that's somebody who puts in significant money.
Sure.
At every level of it. So
it makes sense, yes.
In the case of this referee, has he resigned? No. He's not resigned.
No, none of them have.
No, but the legalities of it is that the Ethics Committee of the Football Association, headed by Kofi Boakye, is supposed to be the one that sits down and then maybe like FIFA did, say that all referees mentioned in this, you are suspended from officiating.
But the GFA is not doing that now.
It gives a fall. It's sort of a bad impression of a GFA, a very stinky one. One
a kind that they're paralyzed,
one a kind that they are all in cahoot of doing stuff together.
But practically, you have to understand the situation. This is a body that's been punched from every. I can imagine who is really running the Football Association.
Wow.
I was going to ask that question, but are you done?
Wow. I am more worried, actually.
Let me come to you, Jerome, quickly, and then Ms. Oko, you come in. Talking about let's dissolve this, or maybe even if not in accordance with what the government anticipates or seeks to do, let's just start from the ground. Let's start from ground up. Question is, GFA, clarify if or correct me if I'm wrong, is an association of registered football clubs in Ghana.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
So at any given time, membership to the leadership position or that will come from that same lot.
Exactly.
So in cleansing, we are going to be dealing with the same bunch of people who are in there as it is, right?
Yes.
So how then do we ensure that a simple, as it were, the solution or whatever it is will transform things beyond, if we don't ensure that we put in checks and balances.
You see, it is the minister's dissolution, total dissolution thing that has created this confusion.
But we have
it's not.
Let me come and
apologize.
I said it was done.
Let me start.
The things that go allow Jerome to make his point. Yes.
I think that if we had just stuck to the statement, in my opinion, appeared to be more patient, a little systematic than the kind of picture that the minister painted. That's a fact. Now, we cannot have a new FA president coming from that circle we have of members. The announced video, at least, gives us some hope that it is not everyone in there.
There were some two good people in there.
3 of them.
Okay.
The lady also in there.
That, in fact, gives the picture that if we really want to clean the system and get new people to manage it, there are people we can rely on. In fact, I heard yesterday that the suggestion by the former FA president of one person to lead the course was even rejected. Perhaps there were issues as to why he was rejected. But the point is this: I don't support a complete shutdown of the system. You cannot shut it down. We know what the problem is. The problem is that we can identify certain people, certain individuals who have been part of a system to run football down. Like Michael said, The ethics committee must, at this point, be thinking, what do we do? Do we call all these people and ask them to step aside while we look at the appropriate steps to take to clean the system? I have been invited to the ethics committee before, and if I tell you,
for insulting them,
I watched a game involving one of the referees captured in the video. The referee was so bad that he gave 2 bad penalties, a red card that I thought was incorrect. He allowed a player who was on the pitch with pain, indicating that there was something wrong with him, to lie down for 4 minutes. The medical team was signaling him that the boy's position on the field is not good. Something is happening. The referee was still, allowing the game to flow. The medical officer defied him, went on the pitch, took the player, showed the medical officer the red card. Doctors later told us that if the boy had spent a lot more time on the pitch, something bad would have happened. Now, the referee was banned 4 matches afterwards. I saw that referee in Anas's video. It goes to tell you that
he had been motivated.
So the pieces are falling in place after this.
So we may not completely shut down the whole thing, but we know what the problem is. Let's take out the bad nuts. And I'm still insisting that the 3 other members of the committee have no moral authority to sit on the committee, even if by law they are not guilty. We are only pushing the moral argument. We are pushing the ethical argument, so that there will be some confidence in the system. Because we shouldn't forget, even if we shut down the whole place, or even if we take out the individuals that we saw in the video, who we think shouldn't be there, we still need to act in a way that will inspire public confidence.
I think it's in the interest of the GFA to show that level of initiative that we can clean up the system ourselves.
Exactly. So the people left in there, and I'm making this appeal to the club chairman, the managers. They shouldn't take us for granted. People want to see them.
They will act on Monday.
People want to see them taking certain actions, taking certain decisions. And I have said that if I was a member of that executive committee, I would have resigned. I don't mind what will happen afterwards. I would have resigned, just to tell them that we cannot be here appearing to be controlling the country's football. We have some of our own members behaving in a certain way, even if they were tempted. And then we come back and say, external forces came into our midst and then tempted us, and we fell.
That's right. So who is at the helm of affairs now? The president isn't there. He sacked the vice president just before he was.
We don't know.
Away,
but at least there is
the EXCO.
There is the EXCO. There's a general secretary. Those administrative staffs are all there. If the EXCO meets again on Monday, I'm sure they are going to take decisions.
But what do the rules of GFA provide for that in the event? Of course, I was informed that in the event that the president isn't there, it's the vice president who takes over. But if the vice isn't there, who takes over?
It will be. But certainly
the general
secretary. Okay. Yeah, general secretary must have that power to determine what happens next. And with the executive committee being there, with some of their members tainted, they can still meet and tell us where we go from here.
Very well. Let me take some messages and I'll go to Mr. Paul for some other comments. This is coming in from Ganyobi Ni Abe. He says, ask Lawyer Paul if Heart of Oak as a brand and company can sue the masked man for putting their brand and name into disrepute by paying a bribe on their behalf without the tacit knowledge of the club. Good morning to you and your panelists, more especially Lawyer Paul. We are highly disappointed in Mr. Nyantechi, but now he has been banned from taking any football, for being involved in any football activities. They should try to call the rejected players like Suleiman Tari, Prince Boateng, and others back to the Ghana Black Stars. Speaking of which, Kevin Prince Boateng was tweeting and saying, who's right now? At this point, yes, everybody would do that. Right. I told you so. Fallout from number 12. This says, outrage, dissolution, an apology and resignation. If in the past work by ANAS using the ANAS method or principle uncovered evidence deemed to expose corruption and malfeasance against society or the state, for which action was taken, prosecution leading to convictions, imprisonments and dismissals, why will anyone nationalistic and logically sound-minded think it should be different in the case of number 12. And it's breathtaking revelations. I don't know if it's breathtaking, but anyways. Is it because it involves the explicit mention of the names of the president, his vice, his deputy chief of staff, his minister, his deputy minister, and a dreaded NPP financier MP in a context that suggests in-depth knowledge of the actions and pronouncements of the principal character? Okay, it goes on to say, Mr. Nyantechi has captured in number 12. This issue must be viewed like others uncovered by Anas. The people of Ghana expect the same line of action other uncoverings of Anas received. The Anas principle is the Anas principle. It was the same yesterday, must be the same today, must remain the same tomorrow, regardless of who its output implicates. That's coming in from Dr. Apak, MP for Bolsa South, okay? This other one says, Kwesi might have behaved inappropriately. Society should forgive him and help him to settle in. Like, seriously? Jerome, did you hear that? And help him to settle and move on in life. No one is perfect. Jesus Christ forgives all our sins every day, including all of your panelists.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I think we can take that on a lighter side.
Interesting biblical perspective.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Yes, but I think I was also looking at, you see, let's say the House Kotoko match, which is also subject of this investigation. You see, let's take it this way. On that day, let's say even the referee is known to be a corrupt referee. Without the money, will he have given that penalty? And would that injustice have caused Kotoko?
Well, those are quite...
Yes,
but we do know that he was given some money.
Yes.
And it turned out...
You see, people are also... you know, somebody asked whether Haas can sue, for example, because... And I saw a statement by Haas, at least it's on their letterhead, if it's from them.
It was from them.
They clearly were not happy, because one day say that it was not a Haas supporter or a known Haas supporter who did that. Yeah. Because now... when people are going to play, that impression, which is not right.
Reputations must suffer for a bigger gain.
Well, but then at the same time, the gain when it's tainted, because you cause somebody's reputation to suffer, cannot also be right.
My suggestion,
it's not about the end justifying the means.
My suggestion is, no, I'm sorry, but in this case, it has to be. My suggestion is that, and Jerome mentioned something in his first submission. The circumstances we found ourselves in football required drastic measures.
No doubt.
So these are exceptional circumstances,
exceptional circumstances. How else could... I've heard people say people should be told when they record. How really could Anas have gone to them to say...
But with the hard... But Michael, let's look at the hard situation as
would it not have been possible that after giving him the money and he going to the field, he could have been stopped?
No. Those are speculations.
No, but I'm saying that, you see, what happened in Kumasi, was it different from what happened on May 9?
No, it wasn't.
Was it?
But those are
that which erupted it. So I'm saying that there is a extent to
May 9th was not just based on a referee's decision.
No.
May 9th was based, as established by the commission, on the reaction of the police.
No, but I'm saying that there was a prelude. It started. So what I'm saying is that Kotoko fans were obviously incensed and outraged.
Yes. But instead it's no reason to throw chairs into this.
What I'm saying is that there is a extent to which this can be carried. And I have heard a statement that Tiger may want to even sue for the nullification of the entire...
Exactly, which is why I was asking what happens with that.
My point is that there is a extent to which we can carry this. Also, realizing that because of the emotions that football can exact from people, in a matter like this, you try not to let you get to the point where the thing actually then can erupt. So my point, you see, no. So what I'm saying is that, like this example, so Kotoko can decide that then that particular result should be reversed. Because in actual fact, fraud vitiates everything.
Exactly, that's what I was asking. What happens to that match?
Fraud vitiates everything. What it means is that the referee fraudulently awarded penalty
and I think
for her. But then
the
point also, as was mentioned, the FA committee responsible reviewed it and said the referee did nothing wrong.
Yes.
So that is another matter that we need to look at. It's due process. So once we are at it, my point is, yes, we may have suspicions, but those people who pay the bribes are not outsiders. They are the very owners of these teams.
Yes.
That are allegedly. I mean, Alhaji Grinsa has been talking about it, going to court all his life about some of these things. So once we are even looking at bringing in new executives, there is the need for even the owners of these institutions, who are the members of the football clubs, who are the members of the GFA, to even also do some introspection. Yes. They know those who do these things, and they know those who don't do it.
But so far, their attitude has not shown a willingness to do that. Because
so even they are not coming out vigorously enough on this matter, the owners of the clubs. Because correct me if I'm wrong.
I think the Ghana League Clubs Association will meet on this. The point I wanted to, you see, I don't know if I'm taking the, but...
No, when you're done, I'll come to Joe so you can...
From my journalistic perspective, I'm quite a fierce defender of Anas, because I am convinced beyond every doubt. If you know, and I've always said to people, in the last 2 weeks, journalists who have been threatened, a good friend of mine was almost beaten up in his house. We live in a system where merely saying things can put you in trouble within the football fraternity. We also live in a system where, under the conditions, it was not possible under any means for anybody to be able to expose these things in any conventional means. I would be happy if there was an Anas expose into Ghana football every year. I really think that he's done us a great service. For those of us who are sports journalists, he's vindicated a lot of the things that were said on a regular basis. Mr. Nyantichi himself, you mentioned the video where he says, bring evidence. He himself said as well at a certain point that they were more than happy for Anas to investigate the Ghana Football Association. Did they have doubts with the principles? Did they have doubts with the procedures? We are in serious times, and everywhere in the world where sting operation, where football has been radicalized, it's been by operations like this, because football is such a closed society. For all the things with the thousands of fans in the stadiums and the rest, I go to cover Ghana Black Stars games, and I hear things that I dare not repeat anywhere, unless to my closest friends. There's no way I would report a lot of the things I hear. You get used to it, because you know the truth is that it's not because you agree to the things that are done, because you know deep down you, having studied and practiced journalism, that if you report it, the next step is, where is the evidence? Songo discovered that. He and his organization are still fighting a mammoth legal suit against them. Kwaku Yeboah has been in similar problems. So somebody needed to do something drastic. It's unfortunate for us that they needed to suffer the reputational damage. So but I'm saying that in the circumstances that we were, and the Haas statement, in addition to saying they were not happy, said they were also shocked by the extent of the rot that had been discovered. So they were not happy that their name had been dragged in that way, but they admitted and even went on. Haas were the first club to go on to call for the resignation of those officials caught in the video. So they were almost saying that it's unfortunate we've been caught up in this, but we are more than happy for this to take its natural course. So I really want us to
take it within that context. Issue. I mean, in the case that the match, you were able to, the act, he took the money,
but didn't,
and then also the match was yet to go on. Why, if you are first defender of Anas's theory, I have commissioned you. I have taken money. We are here to go and play the match, and in principle, you should have taken an action there. So why would you wait for
some of the things I hear,
and the decision?
Some of the things I hear, some of the things I hear, I hear people trying to portray Anas as a journalist, as a policeman, as a prosecutor. He's not. He is first and foremost a journalist who set out to do an investigative piece. Who set out to do an investigative piece to tell the whole world about the extent of the rot in Ghana football. Right. He needed the referee to take the money and go on the pitch so it could add up to his story. That's how we journalists work.
Very well. I think we can take that explanation and move on with the conversation. Respond to that, and I have a specific
question. Today you not talk about anything else.
Of course not.
I'm surprised
he's taken over. Anas has taken over.
There's something we are all
losing sight of.
And I'm not talking about those of us here. I'm talking about a lot of the people who are against analysis methods. The FA themselves made it clear at some point. And Michael mentioned that point.
Jeremiah, I'd need you to hold your thoughts on that one. We need to take a break. When we come back, you make your submissions, and then we'll wrap it up and look at the mass sacking of some four states. Is it the CEOs of some state agencies or institutions? You're watching New Day, Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday edition, and we're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We're still looking at the aftermath of the showing of ANAS's latest expose, number 12, when greed and misconduct become the norm. We'll be wrapping up on the conversation, but before that, let's take a listen to Alhaji Gunsa. I believe you all know Alhaji Gunsa, who was on the tape and making certain admissions that yes, in the past he used to pay, but he stopped such payments. Let's take a listen to exactly what he said, and I believe there was some subsequent engagement with him as well. We'll take a listen to that too and then return to the panel.
Alhaji, good morning. First of all, I'm sure you've heard a lot about the ANAS expose on the Ghana Football Association. Have you seen the video yourself?
ANAS exposing some of the members of the Ghana Football Association, not Ghana Football Association as a whole, because some of us didn't make anything.
But have you seen the video?
No, I didn't see the video.
Why?
I don't have time to go and watch the video. I'm fighting to get my daily bread and these things.
Now, there are quite a number of people who are implicated in the video. For instance, Ghana Football Association President Kwesi Nyantakyi was in the video receiving some cash, as well as referees and all of that. What does this mean for Ghana football?
Yes, I don't know the cash he received, because they spoke about, it's a different issue according to people watching the distance. Nyantakyi as a businessman, Nyantakyi as a football administrator, the money he take it, either is for football or is for the business. That one, I don't know, no indication on this issue.
Now, I mean, there are quite a number of referees as well who took bribes and then changed the dynamics of games in that video. Now, as a club administrator yourself, have you ever paid bribes before?
Some of them are doing, some of them are not doing. Even according to those who watch, I hear somebody on my FM today is indicating some of the fixed match, the Tiger Eye people wanted to go to them, hasn't go to them, but they pay the money. That the referee is fair. That one I can comment, say the referee is not good. But some of them, like Thomas Nunu, they catch him. It's proud in this country, is not taking brap, but we brap him before. We give him money against office. He come and sleep in. We give him hotel, he sleep. But later, his comment saying, I wanted to bribe him, he didn't take it. Even last 3, 4 months or 5 months in Cape Coast, he says somebody, now I give him the bribe, now he take it. I'm the one give him now. Or I'm the one catch him in the video. Kind of these people, we should sack them from Ghana football. Not deserving football, he can't do anything.
So what do you make of all of this? Have you, as a club administrator for King Faisal, have you paid bribes before, and how did it go for your team?
When you are worrying yourself, I say this thing so many times. What do you want me to say? I can't repeat it, these things. During more than 10 years, I was complaining. And some of the authorities in this country, they are not taking, because to me, I'm illiterate. But now, ANAS come with some trickish to do, trick to do what he can do. He did it. But I was saying this in Ben Kofi's time. We want to review of the matches. All the clubs are criticizing the referees. I raise my hand. I say, we, the clubs, we are going to the referee, bribing them. I did some. I swear, mighty Allah. If anyone is here, he never paid the money, he should raise his hand. Who raised his hand? But that one is not news for you because somebody is not the person, necessary person saying this here. But Anas can be my son. Now you are taking him up. He did the good job. It's a good job. He did his best, but ours is not. We don't trick anyone. We go straight. We say it. Like Thomas Nunu case. Thomas Nunu now is, look, kind of this referee. He get appointment. He finished his referee.
Right. So that was Alhaji Gunsat there, president of King Faisal Football Club, making some statements there concerning payment of bribes to referees and other officials. Jerome, what do you make of
no.
Grusa, saying that,
Grusa has been saying these things. And he's in the video talking about the fact that he's not paying now, but he used to. Yes, he used to, and it appears to be the norm. I wanted to make a point about analysis methods and the fact that people have said it is not the best. What is it that those people will say about the fact that the FA itself once told the public that they were going to employ a nurse to go and investigate corruption in Ghana football? I mean, what methods were a nurse going to use? Because for all that I know, this has been his style. And we are making it look like when it was about the custom officers, when it was about the judges, the cocoa people, even the gold scam, when it was about all those people, it was okay. He touches football and people are angry. Once the FA recognized
but I think his methods have been questioned.
I don't have a problem with the questions that are being asked. I'm only saying that for logical reasons, once the FA itself came out to say that a nurse may be employed to go into our game and look at the issues of corruption that we've all spoken about, the same FA and people around it cannot come back and tell me we have to question analysis methods because
they should have known that this is the method was going to
and then the second issue, you see, we are missing one point in the whole conversation, and I said that it is not the five of us here. It looks as if people are not concerned about the referees, the administrators, and people in charge of our football who are supposed to live a certain lifestyle, who are supposed to show a certain example so that we all follow. And I was making the point earlier that if I'm a FIFA referee and I don't have any regard for the FIFA badge, I don't have any business being in the system. We should be able to also talk about the fact that people entrusted with certain things must come with a certain integrity so that even if temptation comes, you'll be able to resist it.
Not to hold brief for them, but alongside the integrity, what about remuneration? People have had cause to complain about that.
You see,
do you think that is...
I know those are issues we have to look at. But then if I put it against the female executive member who took 300 cedis, I do not think that anything he takes at the FA is less than that money he took. So then, there are issues of integrity that we have to talk about.
Income is very important.
I mean, no, of course, but if that second income comes with ethical questions,
but
you have to be worried.
I think beyond the remuneration, there are systems within the appointment of referees and the way it's run that opens it up to a great deal of corruption. For instance,
let me have Jerome conclude, and then I will continue.
So my final point is, we shouldn't just question analysis methods if we so want to do that. I won't question his methods. I think that if the system we have is so dark that you cannot go in there, you have to employ methods that will open up some light on it. And we should be honest about this. If a camera is put on me to make certain confessions, my behavior will be different. If there's no camera on me, I will still behave differently. It is something we should understand and spare Anas that part. We should be able to question our people. If you are put into a position to manage, an association, to manage something, come with integrity to the table so that people can trust that you are supposed to do this and you are doing it. If you are tempted and you fall for it, I am all for Lawyer Yea, JF Mensah and the rest who stood on their ground and said, no, I won't take this. Those are the people we have to emulate and stop questioning, asking questions about.
Especially when you say you will invite him to come, you should have expected that he's coming with this kind of.
That was what.
They didn't expect that he was coming.
Let me quickly go to you. And please, I have a question for you. Alhaji Gunsa on there, his admissions, he's no longer doing that. What are the implications for that? Of that. And again, there are those who are, well, and I think to you, Michael, as well, indeed, everyone around here, that his club apparently is in relegation now, and there are speculations that perhaps it's because he stopped paying, that's why he finds himself in relegation. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, crime, put bluntly, has no expiry date. There's no limitation period for that. That's why Bill Cosby and co. things they were alleged to have done many years ago. He's almost going to be convicted for it. So maybe we may grant that he's been very honest with us and he's been candid.
So that should
with us.
He should be let go.
So we can also look at the consequence of it. But if he used to pay and his team was doing well when he was paying, and there's evidence that then he has also shot himself in the foot. You shouldn't have started paying in the first place.
But you said he's been candid, so that's okay.
Yes, but you see, the point being made is that I don't think that anybody is against what Anas does. And I, for example, it's our responsibility to combat these things. And the Constitution gives us that right. My point is that, for example, when you've gotten the information, I think first of all it should be sent to the police, the appropriate state institution, to proceed with investigation from there. You understand? Because as has been done consistently, the judges won, but for the fact that the Constitution says that you should send a petition to the president, I'm very sure he would have taken it to the police when he finished. And for me, that is very crucial.
So the naming and shaming should not come before the
that is my view.
Right.
Because of the fact that this is not a very sophisticated community that we have here. But the other thing also is that, you see, when you get the information and the issue about how it was procured comes in, my point is, if somebody is in the act of committing an offense, for me, I'm all for applying any method, whether conventional or unconventional, to procure that information. And if possible, find a way to stop the person, because even a private person has a right to arrest. When a person is committing an offense in his presence, or when he suspects that he has done so, but that one, the caveat is that he should have in fact committed the offense and you would have taken him to the police. So nobody is really against that. The other aspect is what people have referred to as stingy journalism or entrapment and all that. Somebody said that, well, Adam and Eve were entrapped and yet God punished them.
On that note,
my point is, the one who entrapped them was also punished.
We need to take a break on that note. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will finally bring a wrap on the conversations here. It's been an interesting conversation so far. See you shortly. Welcome back. You're still watching Newday Saturday edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and streaming live online around the world at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV Ghana. I'll take some quick messages and return to the panel for their concluding remarks. Now, this one says, Kwesi Nyantakyi's verbal diarrhea is beyond human comprehension. His resignation and apology is inconsequential because plans are far advanced to dissolve the very association he heads. Regards to, okay, that's hashtag say no to corruption. The truth must be told and must be revealed. I am sad and worried the effect of what Anas exposes the effect of what Anas exposes will it bring on our democracy and damage to our rule of law. I am not convinced that the video shown has the exact length, because before someone accepts a deal from you, it starts from somewhere to the end. And Anas's expose cannot convince me enough that Nyantichi is corrupt. Let all Ghanaians ask ourselves this question. What did Anas say to him before he accepted the sponsorship office? In Nyantichi's police report, he stated that Anas mentioned ex-President Mahama's name, so hasn't Anas also committed a false... Okay, you're raising so many issues now. That's, may Ghana live long. May we all see the true citizens. That's, you're sending this from Takrady. Let me take this one. Good morning, Abner and your panelists. I am Akpang Norbert from Kandiga in the Upper East Region. Nyantichi mentioning the former President Mahama's name in his alleged police statement is neither here nor there. Is it because Nyantichi mentioned President Nanado's name in the video that Nyantichi sought to equalize by mentioning Mahama's name in the statements? Let me take the last one and then we come to the panel. Good morning. If those who do not agree with the method Anas is using to expose corruption have a different and better method, they should bring it out instead of irresponsibly attacking him. That's Asanko in Santa Maria. Thank you for your messages. Quickly, I'll go to Mike here for your concluding remarks, as well as specifically looking at the situation. I mean, there's been talk about the role betting companies are likely to play, you know, in all of this. I mean, in terms of influencing the outcome of matches, because they would have a certain interest. And we see them springing up left, right, center in Ghana now. Actually, for a very long time, you know, the influence, in the case involving referee Joseph Lamte from Ghana, who was suspended, who is on a lifetime ban from FIFA, he was suspended because there was a complicated pattern in the betting around the time, and FIFA established that he had taken money from betting companies to influence the game in that regard. We have a system in the Ghana Premier League where more than half the clubs are sponsored by betting companies. I think there's an issue that we need to have a frank national conversation about. We need to set strong structures in place that causes us. We basically need to be aware of the danger that this presents. There's no suggestion at the moment that anybody is doing anything wrong, but this is something that could so easily become a major issue, and I would not be surprised if in 4 years' time we are having this conversation around the betting issues. England has recognized that their football association have said they will not allow anybody to be involved in that. There's been instances, I think, Jerome, where some players have been taken to the ethics committee for betting on games and the rest, but our laws are not, I don't think we are strong enough on it. You know, we should have a situation where players cannot bet on games, officials, based on what you say. There are a lot of things that we allow to go. In England, if you're a player and you place a bet, you're almost losing like 2 weeks of your wages. You know, the Premier League is pretty firm on how the players themselves get involved. They have not been able to stop the clubs from taking bet, but these are countries where how much money you get in sponsorship is lodged with a proper authority. There is a controlling authority. There are clear rules on at what point you advertise, the size of the budgets and everything. Here we don't seem to. So I think it's a fair point that hopefully we need to look at. Going forward, I hope that this provides a clearer path for football. I hope, and I was going to make the point about the referee's remuneration. Of course, we always say that how much somebody earns does not factor in whether they are corrupt or not. But there are a lot of issues to be considered in terms of who we make our referees. I watch referees from outside. I watch medical doctors, lawyers, engineers, and the rest, people of the highest caliber of professions who go and do this. I think we should begin to make refereeing attractive in that way. I go back to the point, these days in Europe, there are professional referees whose only job is to be referees. So you've got the game professionals body in England that employs the referees. It is independent of the Football Association and the Premier League of England, so that nobody at the Ghana of the English Football Association or the Italian Federation is the one who is appointing referees. Because they're like here, there are people from clubs and the rest who sit on these bodies. So if they're the same ones appointing referees, so they've created a different company completely controlled by somebody else who would negotiate their sponsorship deal about kits and the clothing they wear and everything, who take care of the referees. We must learn the separation of powers in this country with football, so that everybody is very clear in their minds. The other thing is that I really hope going forward in the next dispensation that
everybody at the Ghana Football Association, the executive committee, will understand that you don't need to create demigods, you need to create strong institutions. We are in this situation because we allowed Mr. Nyantechi to effectively turn the Ghana Football Association into his personal property. We don't have a vice president now because he names the vice president and sacked the one who was there. He names the emergency committee, which would have been running the day-to-day affairs of the club himself. And these were decisions that were made by people, the club owners themselves, the stakeholders who went to sit in a meeting and voted yes.
Very well.
You know, you're allowed to do all these things, so we have to check those.
Very well. Thank you for that, Honourable.
You're listening to Alaji Kunsa. One will have to worry that the football matches or the success of any game is left at the mercy of officials, and it's worrying. I mean, really much. It's sad. It's bringing a certain theory that probably I hear from the Galka people and how much they are going to push the GFA very hard. It's like the game is a game that officials in currently are very heartless, extremely heartless. I mean, because you see, you have a player play and would injure himself, and that could be the end of him. You have people leaving their jobs and taking sports to be either business or leisure or everything. And you see, you have persons who just sit in the room and decide that, okay, now this is the way that is going to go. And that is what Alaji Kunsa has said. He said he used to be paying. He's paid before. And that is where my interest as an ordinary citizen on this issue is that can't we have any sort of inquiry where the public would see and many more allegations will come so that we chatter apart after this once and for all? I mean, clearly the Ghana football hasn't developed for the past 10 years. You have skilled people in my constituency who, even when you go there, would want to go forward. You don't have academies for the past 10 years if we have an analysis of how much money has come into GFA and what you can build structures upon. That the ordinary Ghanaian, be it whether your father or brother can link you or may not be able to link you, will have the fair opportunity to be somebody to scout that child, and the person lifted. You know, Opokunti was lifted in the very village of my constituency, Senyeja. An exclusive area that you would not expect that somebody will pick him up from. And there are a lot of people like that, and they don't have any avenue to go because there are some persons at the GFA who have not invested in the institution and human resource development.
Thank you very much, Honourable. Let me quickly move to Mr. Opong. Yes, let me specifically, I think we haven't touched on the fact the issue about Nyantechi and the statements he alluded or made about the presidents, the vice presidents, the implications of that quickly.
Well, I mean, the lawyers may call it a mere path.
It was a bluff.
It was a similar thing as the Tagore matter. Keep on going to that. He's attempted
the 5211.
Yes,
want to take over the whole country. Take over the whole country.
I think that he was just consumed by the circumstances at the time and made a lot of these statements. What is rather more worrying is what is alleged to be contained in his statement to the police, alleging that he was convinced by this because of some previous conduct of those people. I think that also, if he was still making this statement because of the emotions.
Not to cut you, but we have some quotations picked from the exposés. This is where I believe Mr. Nyantechi was talking about his grand scheme to take over the whole country when he had the red curtain behind him and all of that.
Well, what is quite strange and appears to link to that is the fact that I understand he said he may be a politician very soon. So is he going to take over as a businessman and then proceed to become a politician and become a president?
Our politics has been so monetized now.
So I think that if what he stated with the police also regarding former President Mahama or the NDC is also the result of this whole confusion, I think he will have to also say something, because that is more official than what he said in the video, which he has attempted to either recant, withdraw, and so on. But then moving on, I think there should be a way of having a conversation with FIFA so that we pass a law. Parliament has a right, has the power to pass a law, authority to pass a law, to regulate professional bodies and such associations. In the case of the Bar Association, I mean, there's a law that that has been passed in regulations. So I think that if that is done, then the government hold of it will become a bit stronger than it is now. And I'm sure FIFA should be able to grant us that respite.
Thank you
because of
much.
the special circumstances of our case.
I have just a minute to give you.
I just want to say that we've seen the rot. The people left in there should be guided by the sort of reaction that we've seen to know that going forward we would not allow people to take our football and do what they want with it. The ethics committee of the FA should look at what FIFA has done and call their own people, because some of us made comments that, I mean, we didn't have any basis to make. We were more or less scolded. Here we've seen people taking money to influence matches. We should call them and do the appropriate thing.
Very well. Thank you so much for your comments. But before we go, let me say a happy birthday to our Central Regional Correspondent, Thomas Khan. Happy birthday to you from the entire Media General family, and we wish you well. We do know that you've been not too well in the recent past, but we do wish you well, and a happy birthday to you. But also, thank you to my panelists. It's been a great discussion. As you can see, obviously, we couldn't talk about the sacking of the 4 state CEOs of the state organizations. Obviously, Anas took over the whole, conversation, just as other people were taking over, exactly. But it's been a worthwhile conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. We do appreciate that, and your contributions and your remarks as well. Thank you to the panelists, Michael Otieje, Dr. Nana Eyu Efriye, Jerome Ochri, and Yao Pong. We'll see you here same time next week. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.